We're speaking with Jennifer Dawn Adams, who is running for City Council in Kamloops in this 2018 civic election. Jennifer, are there any social justice causes you're personally active in, or at least interested in?
Yeah, actually, there's quite a few. I march every year in the Peace March. I do that as for the peace and the environment, and the people that gather together there are always there for different issues for environment and safety, social causes. I've been involved in social justice probably most of my life. The Pride Parade, I think first time I walked in the Pride Parade was about 25 years ago in Vancouver. So often people will recognize me as seeing me out at different protests and different activities like that. Very important to me. I think that the social fabric of our community is one of the things that makes it stronger if it's there. I think there's a saying, you probably know it actually, the quote about how society is a measure of how we treat our most vulnerable. So I can't remember who gave the quote, but you probably know the one.
Do you support a living wage for all working people?
Absolutely, yes. I think it's the answer to a lot of our social ills, actually, is to create a more fair system for people, and it would strip away the stigma that comes when people find themselves on any kind of government income, whether it be welfare, whether it be disability. Having a basic income for everyone would end all of that. So absolutely, yes.
Food banks first appeared in Canada in the early 80s, and their usage has only increased since then. Why do you think that is?
Because I think our governments are not doing a very effective job. I think we don't have something like basic income and the things that people need. So if they find themselves either underemployed, unemployed, or employed in a low-income job and a minimum wage job, which is not even $11 an hour now, they can't survive without things like the food bank. So the explosion in the growth of our social sector, in my mind, just shows that we're not doing a very good job in providing the basics that people need. So,
what do you think is Council's role when faced with epidemics like the fentanyl crisis or the lack of affordable housing?
Well, those two are actually closely linked. Not always linked, but they are linked. The opiate overdose crisis has a lot of different reasons for its being. Part of it's overuse of doctor-prescribed drugs, doctor-prescribed prescription drugs. Honestly, I believe that things like CBD and cannabis are another alternative, so non-opiate pain relievers that doctors can supply. So we do see a little bit of a resurgence in that, and I think cannabis is actually a solution to the overdose crisis. On our streets, the things that impact the community of Kamloops, things like discarded needles, that sort of thing, absolutely we need to do different. The needle exchange program, which was originally in Vancouver where they would exchange needles for a clean one, a dirty one, has become needle distribution. And some of the services that are helping those with addiction are not doing enough in my mind, and based on some of the results that we're seeing, to get people into treatment. So sometimes we end up with an industry of serving people, and it's not one that is aggressive enough in helping get people out of their active addiction into treatment, into housing, and helping them. So there's a whole bunch of different things that the community can do. Accountability is important. We can't just push money across the table to social agencies and say, okay, this is your job, you guys go deal with it. Checks and balances are important. Accountability is important. Things like core reviews, those kinds of things can help to determine whether the money we're spending is effectively being spent on the things, and we're getting the results that we need.
What would you do on council specifically to help eliminate homelessness?
Well, I believe we can, for starters. I don't think it's such a big problem that we can't address it. But the city's mandate is not necessarily, at least the way it's written right now, to provide housing. I talk about this a lot because the city isn't going to go out and start buying apartment buildings and supplying affordable housing. But what the city organization can do with the help and direction of council is acquisition. Land acquisitions are very important. Taking opportunities when they come up, or even going out and finding land that's appropriate and talking to the landowners about selling to the city. We have bylaws in place. We have one called the Good Neighbor Bylaw, which was fairly, I think just this past year, brought into effect. And what it does is it gives the city and the administrators some teeth in their bylaw where they can go through the legal direction to take problem residents that are feeding gang activity, crime, creating problems in our neighborhoods. They can actually go through the processes to get those properties back from problem owners. And then I think that we could look at an opportunity where if the city owns that property, could then go into partnerships with social agencies. So just one small solution to the social housing and affordable housing could hit two birds with one stone. But also we have to have the land acquisition. We have to be ready and prepared when the province and the federal government come up with funding, and that's how we get it done, is through collaborative partnerships.
What do you think is a city councillor's job when faced with controversial development projects like Ajax?
I think it's important that councillors take a stand. I think that's very important. I think that we need to have more legal say. The lobbying that's being done by the UBCM is really important. Cities should absolutely have more of an actual say in these projects that are in our backyards. So lobbying the UBCM, ensuring that council feels free to be able to state their positions, lobbying the other areas of government to give cities more power to be able to say yes, or more power to be able to say no to projects like Ajax.
What do you think is a reasonable income for a top earner in our society?
Corporately or city worker or
anywhere, CEOs?
Well, there's no ceiling, I suppose, but CEOs, I think it depends on your budget, right? It usually is measured on that. If a CEO is operating a massive company with lots of employees, then perhaps he, is going to have an opportunity to earn a little bit more. But I don't think it's so much about that ceiling is bringing people from the bottom up and leveling that piece out more. I don't know that we should have earning. I sort of wear two hats on that. I've got this capitalist hat and I've got this socialist hat, so I sort of wear both. But I think it's about elevating people from the bottom up, not necessarily stopping the ones that can. But that whole capitalist piece and that earning, and where you get that 1% is problematic for the rest of society.
So who do you think should be earning those top incomes?
I think if you work hard and you're effectively managing, I think that there can be overruns. Sometimes you'll get companies or social agencies, for instance, that balloon and grow and they get bigger, and the funding cycle just seems to go into creating higher and higher wages instead of the services trickling down. So things like core reviews and inventories, those types of things can be looked at. Over time, people get paid more and more, their pensions grow. With like an organization of the city of Kamloops, I think it's important to have a good staff that works well together, but I also think it's important to keep it fresh and not get those entrenched, maybe super high paid jobs for people that may not be as actively engaged as somebody more inexperienced might be, and with less of a wage. So I think sometimes those in organizations that are making those top wages, that we can do those core reviews, look at the situation and find out if we can maybe hire 3 people for what one person is doing for less.
What are your thoughts on the current state of public transit and transportation infrastructure in Kamloops?
I think Kamloops is actually a fairly good city for getting around. I've lived in Vancouver, so we could do better. I think long range, we absolutely need to look at things like light trail. I had somebody, actually it was Terry Lake, mentioned to me that I was way out, that it was, it'd be 50 years before we start talking about it. But we got to start having those conversations now. A lot of the getting extra buses, extra time, Again, that's not something that the city can do other than lobby, take advantage of extra hours because it's a provincial jurisdiction. What the city can do is take a look at their inventory, review the assets that we have. Maybe we could use smaller buses on some runs instead of having full-size buses in all the runs, increasing some of the, smaller connections to help feed into the main system. We have a pretty good system for the bus. It's very nice to see it connect out to the reserve now, out that way. So that's going to make a big difference for both the people there as well as Sun River. So I think we're working on it. The transportation plan that's being rolled out right now is going to give us a much broader understanding of where we are with transportation, what we've got, what our needs are. So people get involved, go and involve in the transportation study that's coming out, the stuff happening online for that, and there's always opportunity for the community to engage in the public forums and round tables that they do.
Okay.
That's coming up.
So you mentioned core reviews as a way to address top-heavy, high-income staff and maybe cutting that a bit. But the history on core reviews in municipal spending and how they've been implemented is it usually results in a reduction of the frontline staff, not the top-line staff. But the way you would propose using it is to focus on the top-heavy parts of
efficiencies. Yeah, I believe so. I think that we need to be able to attract good people to run our organization. But like any organization, sometimes it can get a little bit bloated and sometimes it can be a little bit ineffective. Keeping fresh people in there, moving things around, sometimes changing a major management position could allow us to hire 10 more people who could be shoveling sidewalks. So those are some of the things that can be done with efficient reviews of internal processes and pays. But it's all at the public dollar and it's all from tax dollars. So we need to make sure that the city is being run effectively, efficiently, and responsibly. So it's not our money that we're spending, and those the organization is all paid from tax dollars. So we have to make sure that it's people are being paid fairly, but also that we can have reviews and things in place to be able to create a more effective, efficient, and responsible payroll.
What do you hope Kamloops will look like in 20 years?
Well, I'm excited about the growth of Kamloops. I think that this is probably one of the most exciting times that we have to look forward to. People are moving here. You talk to the new ones that are coming here. They're coming here from all over. They're coming from Vancouver. They're coming from Toronto. They're coming from Alberta. So we have this mix of really exciting things coming. So I think we're going to have a lot more of a diverse community than we currently have. I hope that we have got a little bit more of a handle on the affordable housing issue. I hope we have housing across the housing continuum, not just single occupancy housing for people that need lots of supports, but for families as well. I hope we continue to see a lot of density and different things. There's lots of changes. My neighborhood over on Nickel and 5th right downtown, we have 3 whole blocks that are going to be taken out. All of that heritage is going to be gone and new houses are going to be developing. So I hope that as the city changes, that we look at the history, we preserve some of these old buildings, whether it be with photographs or video or histories of the neighborhoods, so that we don't forget the past as we move forward into the future.
Once elected, what will your top priority be? Are there any burning issues you want to see resolved or finally addressed?
Well, I think when I'm in the council seat after October 20th, I'll have an opportunity to deal with some things that I'm very passionate about. I've been very vocal about cannabis, about the community harnessing both medical marijuana as well as cannabis in our industry. So I look forward to being able to deal with some of those issues because they'll be coming down to council shortly after, and some even before maybe the election on October 20th. Affordable housing, I'm hoping to be able to use my voice and my passion for housing and helping the community to help continue to make connections and partnerships. My relationship with both the provincial and federal government with ministers is helpful, and I think that's a very good thing to be able to bring to the table as well. And jobs and housing. So I think that it's great that we have a great city where people can go for meals. We have a lot of social services, but folks need employment. And I have some ideas that I hope with the right audience and with the right leaders in the community that I'll be able to help our community do and step forward to do some of these things. So as a councillor, you have limited power as one person, but we can work together as a unit, and I think that over the last few years, I've established myself in the community and built a relationship with all of the current council as well as some of the staff. And I think that those are the things that are going to be helpful for me as a city councillor.
You mentioned jobs, which addresses unemployment. Would you then advocate for a lower work week? Because if you lowered the work week to, let's say, 30 or 32 hours, you would increase the need for more labor and you would eliminate a lot of the unemployment that currently exists.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting conversation that I've had before about numbers and statistics. And I think that in this very capital-driven world, we need to be very careful that we don't let the boat run away. Taking time for ourselves. We live in this beautiful city, so I think it's really important for people to have quality of life, and that's why we need that affordability. That's why we need those higher income earning jobs so that people don't have to work 60 to 70 hours just to make ends meet. We need, life is short and very precious, and a short work week with a better, healthier, and happier way of life is really, really important. So we're good to live in this great city without being able to take the time for wellness and that kind of thing. So,
Great. Thanks for your time.
Good luck. Thank you.